Hello and welcome to another edition of Santos on Sports, along with my partner and good friend, Mr. Chris Santos. I am Paul Santos. Welcome in. Oh my God, we got so much to talk about tonight. But first of all, we want to thank our sponsors, John Seed. He's an attorney at 156 8th Street in the city of New Bedford. You can go to his website at attorneyjohnseed.com. We have Lakeville Athletic Club, 325 Bedford Street in Lakeville, where you can play tennis and pickleball. Citywide Glass with 3 locations to serve you in Dartmouth, Fall River, and Taunton. And Scotty's Pub, 202 Pleasant Street in Fall River. So we have one coach out the door and a new coach on the way in. Oh, my God, all that within 24 hours. It's been quite a week here with the Patriots.
And that's why we have a special edition of Santos on Sports on a Friday night because, yes, it's been a very, very interesting 24 hours here in New England, out with Bill and in with Mayo. And so now it's pretty much GM time, assistant coaching time, and then, hey, settle down and get ready for an April draft and figure out how you want to do free agency. So a lot going on for the New England Patriots, definitely in the last 24 hours.
All right, so we got 2 questions that we're going to put up there today. Okay. The first question is, Bill Belichick the greatest of all time, undisputed? That's question number 1. Okay. Question number 2, is it a good choice to just promote Gerard Mayo, who's a younger guy, the only experiences he had is being the linebackers coach, to be the head coach just like that without giving it a little bit more consideration? Well, let's start with that first question. I know I'm in the minority. I'm not going to irritate some people, but I don't think you can say that Bill Belichick is the greatest coach of all time. I think it's really unable to determine. I think that's the answer, unable to determine. And why is it unable to determine? Because there are a lot of variables that you have to factor in. Now think about this, right? Okay, during Tom Brady, win all the Super Bowls. Before Tom Brady, after Tom Brady, terrible, okay? But Tom Brady has some supporting cast. Tom Brady then goes down to Tampa with basically the same team. Basically, he had some other guys, but I'm saying, he brought Gronkowski down there, brought Antonio Brown down there, Brady went down there, kind of organized the whole thing. He won the Super Bowl the first year with Bruce Arians. Bruce Arians is no great coach, right? But he had Brady, he had the players, they won. The players win the game, not the coach. Now, let me give you some names here. Andy Reid, right? Bill Walsh, Don Shula, Chuck Noll, right? Any of these guys, right? Mike Shanahan, Bill Parcells, right? Tom Coughlin, who, by the way, is 2-0 against the greatest of all time in the Super Bowl, right? You give any of these guys Tom Brady for 20 years. You put them in the AFC East, which was a joke for 20 years, right? Where you started out the season 6-0. And one time I saw this thing, Bill Belichick won 10 games for the last 15 years or whatever. Yeah, well, all you had to do was go 6-0 against the AFC East and go 500 the rest of the way. Now, I'm not taking anything away from him. I know it sounds like I am. It sounds like, well, what are you hating on Belichick for? Belichick is a great coach, right? But he benefited from some luck. Tom Brady sliding down to whatever round that was, he passed on him too, just like everybody else. So I think what you could say is a lot of these other coaches that I listed, they're all great coaches too. But they just didn't have that sun and the moon thing line up the way Bill Belichick did. And by the way, I'll conclude with this because I know we want to get the X's and O's guy to chime in over here. After Tom Brady left, the greatest coach of all time goes out there and gets Cam Newton, who is probably the worst quarterback in the league. He then drafts Cole Strange in the first round to the point where these other coaches were laughing. They were laughing at him. They're like, I can't believe he took him in the first round. I was going to take him in the 4th round. He then drafts N'Keal Harry, who was an absolute disaster. He has a guy like Nick Folk kicking 50-yard field goals. He doesn't want to pay him. He gets his bum in the 4th round. And then he lets the offensive line deteriorate down to nothing to the point where the quarterback is getting killed, no matter which quarterback it is. Takes the team that's pretty much a 500 team battling for the playoffs and buries them down at 4-13. I'm sorry, you have to factor that in. When he had the players, he had Tom Brady, everything's great. As soon as he didn't have Tom Brady and some of these other guys, he was just like all the other coaches that would have bad teams. All these other coaches, if they had bad teams, they wouldn't win either. That's all I'm saying. So he's in the group of coaches that you could say are great, but he benefited from the moon and the stars lining up as well.
You ready for me to comment? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, I am. Yes.
All right, Paul. I've been doing a lot of thinking about this, and I'm going to disagree with you. I think
again.
I am. I think he is the greatest of all time, and here's why. Since 2000 to now, you've had a salary cap, you've had free agency. He comes up with his own offensive schemes, his own defensive schemes, his own personnel coaching. his own desire to put his game plan in and go with the players that he had to get. And I know you've already talked about a few in the bad years. I'm going to talk about the few he went out and got in the good years. Let's talk about Matt Light, Richard Seymour. Let's talk about Deion Branch, Asante Samuel, Vince Wilfork, Logan Mankins, Goskowski. How about Mayo? How about Slater? How about Edelman? How about Gronk, Devin McCourty? How about those guys that he got to implement his game plan and what he thought was a successful scheme to win all these championships for that period of time? Now, you're talking over 20 years of successful coaching, which has really, really not been done by a lot of teams. So, yeah, I think he has done it the right way, and he went out and got some great players. I can still come up with a Jamie Collins, Dante Hightower, a James White, guys that he put in place to plan his attack in those 20 years. Now, I think since then, even as Tom has left, the two big reasons, and I read about it today, and I kind of agree with this. I thought the two reasons is to properly assemble a playoff worthy roster, that you outdate the emphasis on grit and versatility over dynamics. I think that's one reason right now that he's on his way out. The second one, I think, is that he's got to change with today's NFL and today's offensive style and how to get back to that and change with the NFL. I don't think he's done that in the last couple of years. And I think those two things have hurt Bill Belichick and the reason maybe for his dismissal. But do I call him the GOAT? I do. And that's the reasons I gave you why during those 20 years. Has he had some luck to go with it? Okay. Did you expect Bledsoe to get hurt and actually put in Brady and Brady be successful? What if Bledsoe was good and he didn't and he doesn't get hurt? Would it have been where, okay, I'm going to sit, Bledsoe down and make that switch? I don't know if he would have done that. There's a lot of different ways. You had the tuck rule. You had a lot of different things. Yeah, okay, go his way. But he put himself in that situation. I have to give it to him. With all that I'm saying, I like it. It's never going to be duplicated again. I consider him the greatest of all time. For that reason, during that span, yes.
He's Bruce Arians multiplied by 20. That's what he is. Bruce Arians had him for 1 year, and he went right to the Super Bowl.
Right, because Bruce Arians made his team better, and Bruce Arians put together a group of guys that could make it. What needed for Bruce Arians was someone to lead them, and that's why Tom Brady went there, because he knew that he could lead the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to a Super Bowl. He wasn't stupid. He wasn't going to go to an 0-16 team. He went to a team that's on the cusp with great players and brought in a few of his own. And the base was already there for him. And Arians knew that, hey, this is a great fit, and he can take me to a title. Absolutely. There's nothing wrong with that.
Okay, let's go to Ben in Dartmouth. Good evening. You're on Santos on Sports.
Well, Paul, I got to say something right now.
Uh-oh.
I did expect this was going to happen, but I'm glad we got the job done. But it's bittersweet. I'm going to be honest with you. Check 24 years ago, and he has led the team to 6 Super Bowls, 17 divisional titles in his tenure as the Patriots head coach. I'm going to be honest with you. Gerard Mayo, I'm okay with it. At the same time, I'd rather have a guy like Mike Vrabel, who's an offensive-minded coach.
A lot of people thought it was going to be Vrabel. There's no question about that.
Yeah, especially when he played as a D-back for the Patriots. But I could just honestly say, at least Robert Kraft was late to the party, but at least he got the job done. 24 years, a 72-year-old working 100 hours a week. I wouldn't expect that to be like. I would expect that to be a case that Patriots move on from him and start a fresh start with a brand new guy like Gerard Mayo, who already knows the system. He played for the Patriots. He got cut in 2015, but he already knows the system really well. So I'm glad we got Mayo.
All right, real quick, is it really undisputed that Bill is the greatest of all time, or is it arguable?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
He is obviously the greatest of all time. I mean, he's surpassed
obviously
George Halas, but he's 14 wins away from surpassing Don Shula's 347 wins.
Right.
So,
all right. I'm going to let you go because we seem to be stacking up calls tonight, but I really appreciate you chiming in, Ben. We'll catch up with you soon.
I'll see you tomorrow at the hockey game if you're there.
All right. Thank you.
Bye.
All right. Let me see. I'm going to go real quick, and then we'll get some comments here. Good evening. You're in Santos on Sports. Hello? All right. Let's try this. Let's try this right here. All right. Well, I don't know. Let's get some thoughts from Chris.
Well, Ben seemed to think that like myself, he's going with Belichick is really the GOAT, and I have no problem with that. I said my piece and what I thought of what he has done during his free agency and salary cap years that he had to go through. He had a couple of years there where he drafted poorly, but he had some great years, and they got some talent when he drafted back sometimes from first and second and went down to fourth and fifth and picked up some great players along the way that fit his scheme. A great defensive mind. We all know that. That's one of his big things. And so, they still have that now. They're looking for some more offense, and maybe Mayo's a guy that can find some people to go with what he thinks will be a new offense in the NFL and work his magic and lead this team back to the playoffs.
Okay, let's go to Butch in Acushnet. Good evening. You're on Santos on Sports. Hello, Butch. Butch from Acushnet. You're on the air. Hello, Butch. Are you there?
I am.
Yes. Good evening, Butch. You're on Santos on Sports.
Good evening, gentlemen. How's it going?
Good. I'm very interested to hear your thoughts on what we've been talking about here because you're a very knowledgeable, well-read, well-understood sports fan. So I'm just wondering what you think about all this.
Well, as you may remember, I'm a Bill Belichick guy.
Okay.
So
it must be Mark Sylvia is on the other side of the train there.
I'm not going to hide that or act like I'm not, but I'm 62 years old.
Yeah.
And I thought about the other day, anyone that's probably younger than 32, maybe 33, don't even remember the New England Patriots having any success whatsoever before Bill Belichick. So we have full-grown adults that have went through their adolescent age, to teenagers, to adults, only knowing one thing. And you can have luck. I think you need luck to be that successful over that period of time. And I like the way that you had brought up many of the mistakes that Bill may have made. And then Chris, immediately, you guys are a great team, immediately contradicted those with, numerous things that he did right. The guy's the greatest of all time, at least in our in modern football with the salary cap and free agency and the way that young players are now. Although I do agree with you I like what Chris said. I read that same article today, Chris, on how players have changed and maybe Bill has not changed enough to get the best out of them. He was more, I think he's relied more on ethics, hard work ethics, instead of the dynamics, as you say. That's a great point. I forgot who wrote that article, but I read part of that today. But certainly is one of the greatest. I'll tell you what, there was a lot of people calling for Bill Belichick's job, and they got what they were calling for, and now they're going to find out how good Bill Belichick was or he wasn't. I heard someone today saying that they expect Mayo to win 7 to 9 games and compete for the playoffs. Those people may be smoking some illegal stuff because that ain't going to happen.
Well, I was going to say, like, that still doesn't explain what you said, going from Tom Brady. First of all, letting Tom Brady go is arguably one of the biggest blunders in sports history. I mean, it's right up there with Bill Buckner missing the ground ball. That was like a real bad move. And then, going from Tom Brady to Cam Newton. I mean, that wasn't like, he's losing his fastball at 72. He's like 66, 67 years old. I mean, how do you explain that? How do you explain, or not paying Nick Folk, getting a field goal kicker like this bum in the 4th round? That doesn't have anything to do with work ethic. That just has to do with the fact that you're making boneheaded decisions.
Well, I think his evaluation process led him to believe that Tom Brady might have been deteriorating. He ended up being wrong. No one's perfect, for sure.
Right.
But, like I said, he also came up with some of the people that, Chris may have not mentioned. But,
oh, yeah, Chris went on a tirade of he listed like 15 people. I thought he was going to go on for 20 minutes. He had so many good.
Listen, I still could if I wanted to.
But there's 2 people I want to bring up that I think was a huge loss to Bill Belichick. Scarnecchia and their offensive coordinator, McDaniels. Those were huge losses that he never recovered from. And understandably, you can understand why. Those people played a tremendous impact on the success of the offense. And, no one ever thinks of them as being part of the reason why, the offense is what it is. But, so all of those are good decisions. He hired both those guys. There's a lot of good coaches that came through there. They did well under Bill. I think the testimonials that you really need to pay attention to is the former players.
Right.
A lot of the former players have now laid out, what they really think of Bill and why they think those things. And I think that, I think the players that did well like him. I think the players that didn't do well probably don't, but I think that's natural for anyone. If you were ever an athlete, ever played any sports, and maybe you weren't starting or you weren't doing the things that the coach was asking for whatever reason, even athletic abilities. You probably lean towards I didn't like that coach that much, as opposed to.
Well, let me jump in there for a second before I go to Chris, because we were talking about this before. At the beginning of the season, we all predicted on what we thought the Patriots were going to do this year. And, there were a couple of people like Mark from Chicago had them at 10-7. I was looking at it through rose-colored glasses. I had them at 9-8. We had a few 8-9s like Nelson from Fall River. Chris and Ryan, who calls from a cushion, at 7-10. So we go down. Well, there's a guy here who's typing in right here, Mario Pereira. He's typing in the comment line. Mm-hmm. He predicted 4-13. And we were like, oh, my God, 4-13. What? I mean, a Bill Belichick coach team is going to go 4-13. I mean, this guy's like, he's way off. Well, now I see Mario Pereira typing in. He says right in there, nope, absolutely not. He's not the GOAT. As soon as he left, it was all Brady. No, Belichick ain't no GOAT. It was all proven that Belichick would be subpar if it wasn't for Brady. So that's why he predicted 4-13. And Chris, can't we say that Mario Pereira was right? After Brady goes, you go away a couple of years, down the chute they go to 4 wins.
Hey, he predicted 4-13. I can't go wrong with a guy who made the prediction and he got it correct. So congratulations to him.
I can't believe that he predicted 4-13 and it came out. I mean, nobody predicted that.
And I don't want to insult anyone, but anyone that.
Did we lose him?
In the game of 11-man football, it's a team sport.
Right.
And yes, is he the greatest? And did he overcome some? But, if you can't stop anybody, I don't care how good Tom Brady is. You know what I mean? So defense, special teams, all those things contributed.
Right.
Look at some of the Super Bowls. They won by a field goal with 1 touchdown.
Right.
Tom Brady wasn't on the defense. So he didn't play any defense, I'll tell you that.
So you have undisputed he's the GOAT.
I do think that he is, especially in my lifetime. I mean, I can't talk for Hallis and some of those other guys. I can tell you this, that the conditions were certainly different back then, even for Landry and some of the Green Bay guys. So, yeah, I think so. Yeah, that's my vote.
All right. Hey, thank you very much for calling, Butch.
All right.
All right. We're cruising right along here on Santos on Sports. Before I go to this next call, let's look at some of these comments over here. Sure. As we said, Mario Pereira said, Belichick ain't no GOAT. It was all proven. Belichick would be subpar if it weren't for Brady. And he goes on and predicts a 4-13 season, which he's the only person I know that predicted that. Correct. We have Mark from Chicago. Chris says Bill Belichick is the GOAT. Yep. Ask him if he wants him to coach the Cowboys next year when they fire McCarthy.
I would not. And the reason being is he would never get along with Jerry Jones. So that would be just a waste of time.
Well, if he's the greatest of all time, though,
it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Jerry's ego will outdo Bill's coaching. It just doesn't matter. And again, I continue to believe that from 2000 to probably 18, 19, that's when Bill was at his best. And as the era has changed, the NFL has changed. And I don't know if Bill has caught up to that new change in his style and the difference. And you've seen what's going on now with trying to get a playoff-worthy roster and different things. I see it different. But it's very difficult to talk bad about Bill Belichick between 2000 and 2018-19 when he was so successful in all those years. You're talking about it, Paul, and when you talk about it, you talk about it from 19 to 20 to 21, 22, and 23. That's when you talk bad about Bill Belichick. And it's usually, where is it during that time between the zeros and obviously 2018? You don't, because Brady was there during that time. So you all have that success. And I get it, but everyone wants to say, but it's got to work together. And as Butch says, it's not all just about Tom. It's about working together, 11 guys on offense, 11 guys on defense, putting the scheme together, putting the coaches together, putting the plan together, doing what you need to win championships. And I think he did it the right way during his 10-year of those 20 years to get him those titles. No doubt in my mind.
All right, and we'll skip over the Patrick Jordan comment and go on to something else. And then he goes on to say, former players' careers are over different eras. That's true. It's hard to compare one era to another. All right, let's go back to the phones. We have Nelson in Fall River. You are on Santos on Sports.
What's up, guys?
How are you?
Good. Let's not forget, you had to put the deflate gate in there, spike gate in there. It's all of that, all of those gates in there.
All right, so your point is what? That he did things that he really wasn't supposed to that contributed to these championships?
According to what was said many years ago, look, he is the GLOAT, GLOAT, the greatest, luckiest of all time.
Oh, the GLOAT. Well, I think that there's some common ground. I mean, when I say common ground, I mean, people are saying he's the greatest of all time. He did this and that, blah, blah, blah. And I'm saying, well, wait a minute. He did have some breaks. So I think even Chris would concede, and the people that are on the other side of the argument, there are lucky bounces. I mean, just the tuck rule, kicking field goals in snowstorms.
Tom Brady.
I mean,
Tom Brady. It's
AFC East. The AFC East, which was a joke for most of those years. You get the bye in the first round. I mean, I don't know if that could be done today just for that reason, that you need to have the best record in the league to get the bye. But I don't know. I think there's at least an argument that a percentage of it was luck, and that if a lot of these other coaches had the same hand to play, that they would win probably as much as Bill. That doesn't mean Bill's a bad coach. I'm not saying, I'm saying Bill is an excellent coach, along with a lot of these other people that didn't have the lucky breaks.
Aside from me putting a little comedy in there, I have to give props where props is due. As they know, they hired a new head coach today.
Yeah, what do you think of the new coach? Good idea, bad idea?
Fantastic idea.
Oh yeah, you like Gerard Mayo? Why?
Well, as a player, Super Bowl champion, former All-Pro, NFL Defensive Rookie of the Year.
Mm-hmm.
And then he led the team in tackles back in 2010. But what also stands out is that he was able to accomplish 7 consecutive seasons as the team captain. So when you factor all that in, it tells me that his dedication is there. wanting to produce as a player, but also to be chosen as the captain. Bill Belichick, he knew what he was selecting.
All right, let me jump in there for a second and pick Chris's mind over here. What about that? The leadership qualities that this coach seems to have that, Robert Kraft saw in Gerard Mayo a long time ago. And as a result, he really sees something special in this guy.
Well, that's what that contract was about, which not many of us knew, that as long as you put it into the NFL league and you tell them ahead of time and you say, I put it in the contract that this guy will be the next head coach of our team, they must had and know and show respect to Gerard Mayo to do something like that. So if that's what Kraft thinks he's got in this guy, and that's why he made him head coach, he went out and did it because he told the league exactly what he was going to do, which obviously foregoes the Rooney Rule and other standard hiring procedures. So they did something ahead in advance, knowing that this guy is the next one in line. And they've had it done for over a year now. So they have high respect. Now, to answer his question, just because he's a great NFL football player, just because he's a great captain and leader, doesn't mean he's going to be a great coach. That doesn't happen all the time, or there would be a lot more players who would be coaches. So you got to make sure that, he has them qualities that players relate to. He's a 37-year-old, youngest now head coach in the NFL. So the players are going to have to relate to that as well. And they're going to learn from him. And you're seeing it in the Michael Ryans from Houston and what he's did this year. And I'm thinking the Patriots are thinking the same thing, that he can make the next step as a inside linebacker coach, not even a coordinator, an inside linebacker coach, but they trust the quality of this guy and say, he's the guy that's going to lead us and be, put us back into the playoffs. So they have high expectations for Gerard Mayo.
And on the eve of Monday's holiday, Martin Luther King Jr. Day, this hiring is also significant because he's the first African American coach to lead the team in franchise history. So it speaks volumes all over. And you're right, Chris. Everything depends on if he was able to produce on the field. But so far, given the thinking behind all this, Kraft and Belichick wanted to make sure, especially Belichick wanted to make sure that the team was left in the best possible hands. So I have to, commend them both for this decision. And I think New England fans should be happy about it on all levels, because now it's officially a new era. And now, Tom Brady's not around, Peyton Manning's not around. This truly is a new era in football.
Yeah, let's hope it works, because, obviously we want this guy to be the new, young, exciting coach. We'll see what they do in the draft. We'll see if, Robert Kraft decides to spend some money in free agency and see if they can get this team back in the playoff hunt. Hey, Nelson, we appreciate the call. Thank you very much.
You guys have a great weekend.
All right, Nelson from Fall River. All right, real quick, Chris, we got a lot of comments here.
Yeah.
Let's see. Trevor Lar Liberty says, without Bledsoe getting injured, Tom never comes in, and Bill has no Super Bowls and even more losses than wins. That record without Brady would be even worse. Pretty harsh from Trevor Lar Liberty. And then we've got Mario Pereira Jr., who says, sorry, I don't respect Belichick. He says in that comment that he was not good in Cleveland. He sucked with Bledsoe after a Super Bowl appearance in the season, and 2 games after, he was 5-13. Then in came the GOAT, the real GOAT, and then off they went, and the rest is history.
That's Mario's opinion, and there's nothing wrong with that. I disagree with it, because you can't have one man win you this stuff. You need an offensive line to block for him. You need receivers to get open for him. You need play callers calling the play to make it. And, you need running backs to run the ball. You need defense to shut down other teams. You need turnovers. You need field. You need a lot of things in football. And yes, you had a man who could run that system to perfection. I get it. Tom is also the GOAT of quarterbacks. You need it to work together to get the job done. It just can't be Tom. If Tom Brady picked the ball and the offensive line just stood there and guys came in, Tom would have no time to throw. He'd get his ass busted.
No question about
He'd be on his ground.
Right.
And then you couldn't say he would be the GOAT because it wouldn't happen. All these things have to gel and work together. That's football. And they did it the best for 20 years out of any teams. I get it. Let's just put the two people together and say they work together better than everybody instead of this debate, because that it's really not a debate, in my opinion. He's the best at his position, quarterback, and he's the best at his position, head coach. And they did it great for 20 years.
Right. No, but I don't think the argument is that Brady did it all by himself.
But that's what they're saying.
Yeah, but that's all. I'm saying that Brady didn't do it all by himself. Brady had help with the offensive line, great field goal kicker, and Belichick is responsible for putting that team together. Yes, that's all true. But also, Belichick benefited from the fact that, he could just have Brady kind of calling the plays out there. Brady would go up to the line of scrimmage, change the plays all around. I mean, he was running the whole thing in the end. So Belichick could just kind of focus on his defense and that was about it. And then when Brady left, I don't know, the whole thing fell apart. I mean, he couldn't hold it together. I thought he was going to go out there and at least be a team or lead the team into the playoffs every year. And he only got there once, just barely, and then they got slaughtered in the first round. So, I mean, if you're the
greatest... Who's replacing Brady? Who's replacing Brady? Nobody.
Yeah, but if you're the
Nobody's replacing Brady.
No, but if you're the greatest coach of all time...
Nobody's replacing Brady.
Why can't you take...
You need someone to replace Brady to run that same offense.
No, but Brady didn't do it alone. So, in other words, Brady leaves, right? You're the greatest coach of all time.
Yep.
You should be able to put something together that at least gets you in the playoffs. Maybe you're not going to win.
Well, he did, even with Mac, for one playoff year. And then, again, things started to develop where different situations of this era of football that he's not able to coach the same way. And then, obviously, the roster moves now that were made were not the same back in the era when they were winning. So, you don't have the same talent as Tom did.
Yeah, I think, too, that,
coaching staff. Let's not forget, between 20 and 23, you were shaking that offensive coordinator for 3 years and didn't know what to do. You were confused.
Well, everybody said that, having Matt Patricia and Joe Judge there was such a terrible thing, and they didn't know what they were doing. Hey, they went 8-9. Billy O'Brien went 4-13. So, I mean, if we're just going to count wins, what does that say about Billy O'Brien versus Matt Patricia? Mm-hmm. But in addition, I think at the very end of Brady's tenure at New England playing for the Patriots, I think he was trying to tell Bill Belichick, hey, we can't win with the receivers I got here. I haven't got anybody here. Can you get me Antonio Brown? Well, they tried to get Antonio Brown, but he had all kinds of off-the-field problems. Okay, that didn't work. But Brady could tell because he'd been around so long. He used to say, I got the interest of the test. He would look out there and he'd go, we can't win with this. We were 8-0 at the beginning of that last season, but they were playing trashy teams. And as soon as they started playing the good teams, they got knocked off by Mike Vrabel's Tennessee Titans in Foxborough in a home game. Yep. And Brady didn't look that great in that game because, you didn't have the supporting cast. So Brady was trying to tell Belichick, hey, we've been doing this a long time. I know we need to win, but Belichick wouldn't listen to him.
Right.
So to me, you got to factor that in. You can't just say, well, he won 6 times, so that's it. Right. Well, no, I mean, I always used to say, I got laughed at too. I was debating this with my son, and I said, well, if you're just going to count championships, that means Doug Marabelli was better than Carlton Fisk. No, because Carlton Fisk was better, but he wasn't on teams that were as good.
Right. No, I agree. I totally agree with you. I mean, it makes perfect sense. And toward the end there, when Tom left, they weren't seeing eye to eye, and at the same time, the roster was not the same, and the offense was kind of, not the way he wanted it. And they tried to work it out. It just didn't work out. So he moved on and went to a team that was prepared and was ready to take the next step. And they had Jameis Winston, and Winston could not get the job done. And Tom went in there, brought a couple of players with him, and got the job done. Nothing wrong with that. That's why he's a great quarterback.
Shout out to Chris DuPont, who said, number one, that Bill Belichick would not work in Dallas, exactly what you said, because of Jerry Jones and all that. And then he goes on to say, no debate, great quarterback and greatest coach ever. Okay. Nobody will ever have a 20-year run like them.
Yeah, I'll have to agree with that. I don't see that happening again. I'd be really shocked to see that happen. And even those 20 years, they won 6. It's surprising that it's a lot. It's not a few more. So, I don't think the Giants would obviously grabbed them for a couple and some other runs here and there. So it could have been a lot more.
Well, you'd have to have a great quarterback on a great team, coached by any of these people that I just listed, in a weak division where you can get the bye in the first round. Well, you can't get the bye in the first round anymore unless you're the first place team. So it's not set up for anything like that to happen again. Even if Belichick and Brady could magically be put back to 40 years old and 20 years old, I don't think they could duplicate it, because the things that would have to happen happens once. That's at least that's my view. But let's go to Chicago. Yes, I'm really interested in this guy's opinion. Mark from Chicago on
the cold and windy city of Chicago.
Oh, geez, we got 12 inches and counting.
Yeah, we complain about the weather in New England, but I know it's even worse in Chicago in the wintertime.
Oh, it's been snowing all day, but Chris knows my opinion.
All right, let's have it.
Go ahead.
You can't. The guy saying Bill did it because of Brady. Listen, that was a perfect marriage. Mm-hmm. At the end of the day, though, Brady's Brady. And Brady makes up for a lot of sins. Having said that, listen, you can't dispute that Bill is the greatest coach of all time. There's no doubt in my mind.
Yeah, but wait a minute. Suppose Andy Reid, Sean Payton, Bill Walsh, Don Shula, Chuck Noll, any of these guys had Brady for 20 years in the AFC East. How many championships did they win? I think they win just as many as Belichick.
All right, well, let's look at your Reid comparison.
Bruce Arians a stiff. He won the first year, Bringing Brady, there you go. He's walking around with his CPAP unit on his stomach, going, first year, boom, Super Bowl.
Here's the difference. Now, Chris knows, listen, I'm not an Andy Reid guy. Right. But listen, Belichick's specialty is defense, obviously. So he could do things the way he did things with Brady on the field on the other side. Now, look what he did this year. He lost the two best players they had on the team in Judon and Gonzalez, and they still had a top 10 defense. That guy knows how to coach. Now, going on your side, Andy Reid is an outstanding offensive head coach. So you might argue, how would he have won all those years with Brady? He didn't have that expertise on the defensive side of the ball. So maybe that marriage wouldn't have worked with Reid. But the problem for me with Belichick is ego, and I've said this a million times, and evolution. He's outthinking himself because he knows he's such a great coach. And he says, I'm going to coach it my way. And he needed to say, Brady is not here anymore. I got to do things maybe a little bit differently. And he's never done that. And, loss of McDaniels kind of hurt because guess what? The first year with McDaniels and Mac Jones, they won 10 games and went to the playoffs. So once McDaniels left, then a little bit, now you got Brady gone, McDaniels gone, and now you got that offensive side of the ball. We don't know what the hell we're doing, and we've seen what's happened. So I can't dispute Belichick is the greatest of all time. Clearly, his expertise is never on the offensive side of the ball, and that helped having Brady there.
How does the greatest coach of all time let the greatest quarterback of all time walk out the door?
And Josh McDaniels and Scott Necky.
Go ahead, Chris.
Well, Chris is helping my argument. That's good. Thank you.
I'm saying and Josh McDaniels,
right,
and Scott Necky, two great coaches to help that offense, to help Bill, who's a defensive coach.
I want to make clear, I'm not saying Bill's a bum at all. I'm saying he's a great coach. I'm saying he's a great coach that's equal to all these other great coaches. And just the fact that he had some breaks got him to 6 Super Bowls, whereas somebody else might have 3, or this guy might have 4. I mean, look at Phil Jackson. Is he like the greatest coach of all time? Oh, he's got Michael Jordan.
I'm not saying breaks. See, I'm not saying
Michael Jordan. Here's the ball, Michael Jordan. Go out and play. There you go. I mean,
listen, part of the problem is, and we can talk, you got two different things here. Bill is not the greatest general manager of all time.
Correct.
So you got to keep those two separate. Now, you asked it the other day. I believe the blame is on Bill and not Kraft.
Oh.
However, Kraft needed to probably step in and say, hey, Bill, you got to do some things differently. But when Bill was the guy in charge for 20 years, Kraft says, I trust he's going to make the right decisions.
Right.
And he hasn't done that. from a general manager perspective. You can't confuse that with being a great coach.
Correct.
Right. Well, Trevor Liberty also commented here just a moment ago that we needed to rebuild, and Bill never had to do that before. And he actually was handed the Patriots a pretty good roster left over from Bill Parcells that he kind of molded into a dynasty. So he kind of picked up on, that first Super Bowl, the first couple of Super Bowls. There were a lot of players left over from '96.
Yeah, I don't know if I buy into that. I mean, I don't think that takes away from Bill's early years. But listen, I think, one of your callers said this previously, and I only know in 20 years, and there's others, but Asante Samuel is the only player that I've ever recalled that has gone out there and said anything derogatory about Belichick. If you just look at these last couple of days, go on Twitter, every player, current and former, are coming out talking about what he's meant to them and how important he is. And, when you look at Belichick from the outside, you don't see him as necessarily a player's coach because he's a disciplinarian and do this and don't do this. Wes Welker, don't talk about the other coach's foot fetish, all this stuff. Don't talk to the media. Well, the players apparently love the guy.
Right.
It's a family. It's a family, Mark. They became a family. And all those guys knew it, and they all said, we're going to follow him because winning breeds that kind of success.
Exactly.
And so when they were winning, they're going to follow what their leader says. And that's obviously, we played for Tom, but we worked for Bill.
Hey, listen, that's 100% right. And honestly, the Bill and Brady thing, that was a 20-year marriage that you couldn't even you can't even imagine that happening again. So that was like complete euphoric, situation. I mean, but I can't say that takes away from Belichick as a coach. But listen, I do give credit. I mean, Brady's Brady. You can't ever,
right.
Anybody that disputes Brady's the best. Now they really got to go see a shrink or something.
All right, real quick, what do you think about Gerard Mayo?
I actually like it, and actually, the more I thought about this, and I initially was all about Vrabel, but you know what? I think Vrabel's too much old school and too much like Bill, and I like the fact that Jared is a Bill disciple, and he was the captain of the team. He's a coach on the defense now. The players apparently respect him, but he's younger. And I think he's more relatable to the players. And again, I'm saying all this. I've never once heard Jared Mayo on a microphone answering questions from the media.
Right.
I've never heard the guy talk.
Right.
But I think all that being said, I think he's a good coach. I think the players like him. And I think he's probably a good bridge to today's player. But I do think two things need to happen. They need a strong general manager. And they need a really strong, and I heard a lot of people talking about this today. Maybe the head coach that just got fired from the Falcons, who was an offensive coach before he took that job, that maybe he comes in because he's had head coaching experience and he's an offensive coordinator. But he needs a strong offensive coordinator to come in and help him with that side of the ball. I think 10 wins and the playoffs next year, and you might see Mac Jones back under center.
Ooh, wow. All right. Before we let you go, we do have one parting shot from Trevor Liberty. Yep. Bill was completely outcoached by Tom Coughlin, not once, but twice in the Super Bowl. And he was outcoached by Doug Peterson. Tom Brady threw 500 yards and lost the Super Bowl because Bill was outcoached by Tom Coughlin.
Well, I would give him that. Listen, they put pressure on Brady in both of those Giants games with just a 3-man front. No blitz, and they got through to him. So I think Coughlin outcoached him. There's no doubt. Especially the undefeated team. They broke the record for scoring that year. And what did they think? I think they scored 14 points in that Super Bowl. So
right.
Yes, you can't argue that. Coughlin outcoached him for sure.
Hey, Mark, thanks a lot for calling. We always enjoy chatting with you. Call again.
All right, guys, take care.
All right, Mark from Chicago. Wow, we got a real good debate going on here. I don't know if it's really Bill versus Tom. I think it's Bill when he had Tom with the supporting cast, and then these other years when he didn't, the Cleveland years and the post-Brady years, the record's pretty bad. It's 10 games under 500.
Yep.
You know, the before Brady time and the after Brady time. And you got to credit him for building that team during the Brady years, but it's just been so bad after, you know, and it's a lot of these decisions, like you're having a hard time understanding them. And so I think that's why this is a debate that we're having right now.
Right. And as Mark said, too, you have to distinguish between coaching and general managing. And, you know, you've talked about some guys that, you know, he drafted and you sat back and said, what did he do that for? And they were bad drafts. Absolutely. And then I read some off to you that were pretty decent drafts. So when you're winning, the drafts are good. When you're losing, the drafts were bad. So you have your ups and you have your downs. And I'm sure Bill Belichick is not the only one when you're drafting from other head coaches like Andy Reid and like Cowher and all the guys that you've mentioned, Bill Walsh and Andy Reid. You're going to make those mistakes and you're going to have those years where you think this person's going to be okay and it doesn't pan out for you. So from those 24 years, I mean, wasn't that bad of some drafts that he had compared to some that were not good. That's how it goes.
All right, give us a call. We struck a nerve here, which was what we like to do here. 774-762-6234. Give us a call here on Santos on Sports. We have an open line right now. I know we had a time where 3 people were trying to call at once. So this is your opportunity if you want to jump in during the last 15 minutes.
Well, Paul, let's go to, if people want to call in now, let's talk about Mayo. Is this a good decision? Now, we've talked about Bill. Let's go now. Bill's done. Okay. Let's go with Gerard Mayo. Anybody want to call in with that one? Is this a good decision to get an inside linebacker, 5 years experience, not a defensive coordinator, not an offensive coordinator? An in-house guy. You know, what do you say about what you think this guy is going to bring to the table for Bob Kraft and the New England Patriots?
All right, let's go to Ryan from Rochester. Ryan, you're on the air.
Yep.
Hey, guys. How's it going?
Yeah.
Two in 1 week. I'm loving it.
What do you think about Gerard Mayo? Let's start there and work our way back the other way.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what I kind of wanted to get to first anyway. Like, you know, obviously we were texting back and forth this morning. I was pretty emotionally charged, but after, you know, taking some time to think about it, like, I'm not opposed to the hire of Gerard Mayo. Like, I'm not as opposed to, like, the person they hired as more than, you know, the process that it took to, you know, to get here. Like I would have felt a lot better if they had, you know, done a normal searching process. Like if they had if they had interviewed like a couple of outside candidates, like the Mike Vrabels of the world or Ben Johnson or some of these other hotter names, and they thought about it and it was more like, okay, we still want Gerard as our guy. I would have felt a lot better about that. But it just felt kind of weird that they had this succession plan set in stone since last offseason, because, you know, you see Rap Sheet tweeting about it, like it was put in his contract a clause that say, okay, when Bill goes, this guy is our next head coach, and you know, goes to the league, gets approved. It's just set in stone. It's like the answer about Mayo is I really don't know. You know, I've been back and forth about it. Like, you know, I hear like the Burt Breers of the world and, you know, a lot of other guys around the league, you know, talk about how he could potentially be like a special young coaching prospect. And there's one thing I will say in his defense, like sure, he technically in terms of titles didn't have a coordinator title, but, you know, in reading all about him, he pretty much was like a defensive coordinator-ish. He just didn't call plays because, you know, you have Steve calling the plays for, you know, nepotism reasons. But, you know, he was in the meetings. He was about as much involved in the game planning on defense as much as Steve was, just minus the play calling. So could he be a D'Amico Ryans? Maybe. Could he be a Mike Vrabel type? Maybe. Maybe his ceiling is someone like that. I would have just preferred, instead of going with a wild card like this, is to go with a guy with pretty much a more experienced version of Gerard Mayo, who's proven that he can take a team to the playoffs in Mike Vrabel, considering that he was right in their lap to take.
And it's almost to the point, Ryan, where, you know, this happened last year, but let's say Patriots had a good year this year. Now Bill stays on. It's still in that contract. Now it could go to where he's 38, 39, 40 by the time. But it was still in the contract to say, when Bill goes, you're the next guy in line.
Yeah, maybe they thought that Mayo would leave and go somewhere else with all these openings if they didn't put that in there. If they said, hey, look, Bill's 72 years old. He's not going to go on forever. We did have him under contract for another year. You stay with the program, keep trying to build the program here, and we'll give you that job. Maybe that was a factor.
I think he's been asked by other teams to be interviewed, if I'm not mistaken. I thought I heard that too.
Yeah.
But usually Ryan's right. You interview candidate A, candidate B, candidate C, and then you can still come back around and say, you know what? We've interviewed all these other candidates. We're still impressed by Mayo.
This is unique. This is
unique.
unique. This is unique, Paul. This really hasn't happened by any other teams. This is kind of unique. So everyone's trying to, filter it all in and say, well, what's this all about? What do you mean in his contract? What are you talking about? I didn't know you could do that. Everyone's trying to figure all this out. So this is kind of brand new stuff. And it'll be interesting to see if other teams decide to go this route later on down the road.
I think one of our callers felt that, with this setup right here, with the right GM, with a good draft, spend a little bit of money. Didn't somebody say that the Patriots could go 10-7 next year, Chris? It's pretty optimistic, but what do you think about that, Ryan? Do you think that it'll all come together under Mayo like that?
If he's really like a D'Amico Ryans type, maybe, but how likely is it that you're going to have, a Caserio type draft? And that's a good point. I'd say that the more important thing is who's going to be the GM and who's going to be running the offense. Can we get like a Caserio, Bobby Slowick combination, kind of like what they have going in Houston right now? Like, I doubt they could because the Texans are in a very bad division. I don't know, the AFC East is much stronger than the AFC South, so I doubt that they could go 10-7 and maybe make a playoff run. But you never know. At this point, the team is so bare. There are so many holes in the roster. That's like a 7 or 8 win season would be a success for me in Gerard Mayo's first season with hopefully an improved roster. But again, we just have to see who they hire as their GM. That's the more important thing.
Yeah, and it's got to be from, that inside linebackers coach for 5 years. And that part would be like, okay, let's say we hire Vrabel and we move him now, Mayo, to defensive coordinator and see how that goes for the year. And then, kind of get that ball rolling. But I think they really wanted to keep him away from attraction to other teams. And maybe that's why it got into that contract. And they're putting him in right now because they think he's got the tools to be that next, great coach and young coach like McVay, the guy from San Francisco, Shanahan, and a couple others who are young. And so maybe they thought that direction that they would lose him, and they didn't want to lose him. But it's very strange to go from, like I said, just an inside linebacker 5 years to bang head coach. So very surprising, but they have confidence in him. And if they did, they knew it in 1 year ago.
Well, that is a big question, who the general manager is going to be.
Yes.
Well, how about who's the quarterback going to be? Like, what does Mayo think about, say, Mac Jones? Somebody suggested that, hey, don't be surprised if Mac Jones comes back because, Bob Kraft liked Mac Jones. Bill Belichick didn't like Mac Jones. And Mac Jones, as mediocre as he was, it's really hard to say whether he could have success if he had the right team around him. So what does Mayo think of Mac Jones? What does he do? Does he keep Mac Jones and then draft a quarterback to go behind Mac Jones? What about Bailey Zappi? What about those quarterbacks that everybody's been talking about, Williams and some of these other guys in the first round? What about that wide receiver, Harrison, that may be available in the third Patriot pick? So that's all stuff that's going to be so fascinating over the next few months.
Well, it is, but I think Ryan said it a little bit earlier. The coaching and the GM are the two big things right now. So Mayo's the start. Now it's the GM that they can work together and figure out how they want to get this system going. Then it's a defensive coordinator. Then it's, what do we do with Bill O'Brien? Is he staying? Is he going to be our offensive guy? All this has to come up first, Paul, and they got to do it kind of quickly because free agency all of a sudden comes right around the corner, and then obviously the draft is right after it. So this has to go pretty fast, but they got some moves that they got to make, and they got to do it quickly.
All right, Ryan. Hey, thank you very much for calling. We appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me on again, guys.
All right, thank you. Let's see. Let's try this right here and see if we can do this. Hello, you're on Santos on Sports.
Hi, this is Mario from
Hey, Mario.
Hey, 4-13.
How you doing? How you doing?
Hey, congratulations on your 4-13 prediction.
Hey, the thing is I wanted to clear something up with that whole thing. Yeah. I know I hear a lot of people talk about how Belichick's the GOAT and stuff like that. But, when you got a player like Tom Brady, it's easy to call somebody a GOAT when, in reality, when you look at his coaching when he was with Cleveland, 1 year he was in the playoffs but didn't advance any further in the wild card round. With a decent quarterback like Bernie Kosar, you got to give him the respect for that. But then he took over the Patriots after a Super Bowl with Parcells, and he had Bledsoe. That team didn't have much of a difference. And look what he did with them. 5-11 the year after. Then the first 2 games of the season goes 0-2. Then Brady comes in, and then this whole dynasty starts.
Right.
So, I mean, it's very hard to say that Belichick's not good. He's a good coach. Yeah, I like his whole play with enthusiasm, the Patriots way. I like that motivation. It's the same thing with my coordinator in Washington. Even though I hate the enemy, but as far as him goes, he's a good defensive coordinator, great defensive coordinator when it comes to defensive mind. But I mean, I just don't respect Belichick, and to the point that I knew that you can see the decline as the years started progressing. He tried to replace Brady with Mac Jones. And in reality, did Mac Jones really perform?
Well, there's an argument that Kraft kind of pushed him into grabbing Mac Jones, but I agree with just about everything else you said. I think that, Belichick's a great coach, and nobody's disputing that he's not a great coach. He's a great coach, yes, and yes. But there were just a lot of things that lined up with Brady and stuff like that got him a lot of these credits over the years. I think that's what you're saying, correct?
Yes.
Where are you calling from, Mario?
New Bedford.
All right. It's funny because we had put down at the beginning of the year all these different predictions. And when the Patriots finished at 4-13, somebody said, "Hey, Santos, didn't somebody predict 4-13?" I'm like, "Yeah, I think there was one guy that predicted 4-13." So I went and pulled it out, and I'm like, "Oh, there he is right there, Mario Pereira." So when I saw you on the line, I'm like, "Good. I'm glad you commented. I'm glad you called in."
Hey, Mario, my question for you. You're right ahead of New England at number 2. What would you like to see the Commanders do with that pick?
Offensive line. Hands down offensive line. We need offensive line help.
So the kid from Penn State, maybe.
Go ahead, sorry.
So the kid from Penn State or Notre Dame?
I say the kid from Penn State.
Yep.
Penn State, when it comes to colleges, offensive line history, Notre Dame has good offensive line history, but Penn State has a lot more of a coaching staff that builds a lot of good offensive linemen.
Well, let me tell you, Paul will really like that because he wants Marvin Harrison at number 3. So whatever Chicago is going to do, which probably they're going to trade, and then
like I said, it all
probably go.
What we do with the enemy. If we keep the enemy, we know how it's going to stay quarterback. I don't see us getting a quarterback in the first round. As far as New England goes, I think it's going to be hard when Jerron Mayo's going to go, which way he's going to go. I personally don't think they get a wide receiver. I think you guys are going to go quarterback in the first round. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. You're on.
I'm sorry?
You said, yeah, go ahead. Nobody interrupted you. That was just kind of a noise in the background. You think the Patriots should get a quarterback in the first round? All right, I guess I lost. Mario, thank you very much for calling, Mario. Really appreciate it. Don't be a stranger. Call again. Mario from New Bedford, who nails the 4-13 prediction. So I'm looking over here.
Yep.
Trevor La Liberty is saying they need to draft Marvin Harrison Jr. if he's there at number 3 and then go from there. A lot of people agree with that. Get the quarterback later, maybe give Max some weapons. I don't know. But that guy right there, he could be, one of the next great wide receivers, according to the experts. But, of course, they can be wrong. But they seem to be more right about wide receivers than they are about quarterbacks for some reason.
Well, and again, he's one that, has some background, obviously, with his father, how great he was. And so now you're sitting back at number 3 and say, well, where are we weak? Now, Mayo says to himself, well, wait a minute. Is Zappy my guy? Is Mac Jones my guy? Is free agency going to be my guy? Or neither of those, and then I draft one of these quarterbacks. That's what they have to discuss. If they feel that Zappy and Mac are still okay and they're going to like them, then yeah, I can agree, because wide receiver is a position that they need. And I think Trevor's right. Harrison would be a good fit in that spot. I still think they need a couple other spots as well. And maybe you can get that later on. If you feel that, okay, I'll get a Bo Nix or I'll get a Penix later on, or maybe, move up in the draft afterwards, late in the first, and do something different. Well, maybe you can go that route. So there's a lot of thinking right now. What Mayo and his new coaching staff and GM will sit back and have to realize how they want to do this. So it will be interesting to see what they come up with.
All right, we're winding things down, and we lost Mario on the phone, but Mario called back. Mario from New Bedford wants to get one more shot in there. Go ahead, Mario.
Okay, so like I was going back to it, I personally think you guys need a quarterback. But it all depends on who he brings in his offensive coordinator. Is he going to like Zappy? Is he going to like Mac Jones? Personally, I think Mac Jones is a waste of a draft pick. I don't think that kid was anything good, even when he came out of college. He has no arm. When he folds under pressure. I mean, I saw it from the beginning that Mac was in there. Is Bailey Zappy? No, I think that guy. If he would have went to someone like San Fran with Shanahan, I think Zappy could be something, because look what he did with Bird. I just personally think that your first pick should be the face of the franchise, has to be a quarterback. It has
All right,
to be.
Mario, don't be a stranger. Call again.
I will. Thank you very much for taking the call. And
Thanks, Mario.
like I said, I'll be making more predictions.
All right, sounds good. You know what we need? We need somebody that has this. Somebody that has this.
At quarterback.
I haven't held this up.
At quarterback.
Yeah, quarterback. I want to know if Dak has that. We're going to find out. We're going to find out if Dak has that.
Hey, listen, you get there, and then you see what happens when you get there. If they lose the game, and as some other guys say, you throw for 500 yards, but you lose the game, is that Dak's fault? You can't say it that way. That's something that I would like to see my team do better. A lot of inconsistency this year, where the offenses looked great, defense has been bad. Then another game that the defense has been great, the offensives look bad. Then special teams kicks in. We haven't had that where we've put it all together, and that's what you need to be successful. So I'm hoping we can make a little run out of it. We'll see how it goes.
Last week you saw me here with a little smirk on my face, and you said, I think you're rooting against Dallas. I'm like, no, I'm not necessarily rooting against Dallas. I'm just kind of like on the side, just kind of relaxed over there. He goes, oh yeah, you secretly want them to lose.
Listen,
that way you can wave it in my face next time around.
Listen, Sunday there'll probably be a cheese head on your head. So that wouldn't surprise me. You'll call Lambo up, and you'll get one of those cheese heads, and you put it on like you've got a cowboy hat when you were there. You probably sent out for a cheese head already.
All right, let's thank our sponsors. Yeah. How about Scotty's Pub, 202 Pleasant Street in Fall River, Citywide Glass, 3 locations to serve you in Dartmouth, Fall River, and Taunton. Lakeville Athletic Club, located in Lakeville, Massachusetts, and John Seed, attorney at law on 156 8th Street in New Bedford. You can check him out at johnseedlaw.com. Thanks to Ben in Dartmouth, Butch from Acushnet, Nelson from Fall River, Mark from Chicago, and Mario from New Bedford. Trevor La Liberty getting some comments in there. Yep. We had Chris DuPont. Thank you very much for some good comments in there. And I had a feeling it was going to be a fun show over here. Mark Raposo, who typed the word no. I think he typed it when I was talking. He just said no. He didn't say no about anything. He just said no.
Maybe it's to the question. Maybe it's to the question.
Oh, that could be. And
so
Patrick
Mayo,
Jordan.
a good decision. He could have said no. Or is Bill the GOAT? He could have said no. So we don't know which one it was, but the word was no.
The word was no. All right. Well, let's see what happens. It's going to be wild card weekend. It's going to be a lot of fun. Mm-hmm. And there's going to be so many games. And I'm sure many of them are going to come down on the wire. And then we'll have a lot to talk about the next time around. And we haven't even got to the Celtics and the Bruins yet. So we'll pick that up certainly as we proceed along. Hey, a lot of fun tonight, Chris.
Yeah, it was great. And thanks, everybody, for your comments on the chat and the guys who called in. Thank our sponsors, and a great show. Look forward to this weekend of the Wild Card, which is always a fun weekend. A lot of things can go on then. And so we'll be back next week, and we'll settle things down then.
Hey, I missed a comment in here. Stacy Pacheco said we should have kept Bill. Should have kept the Bill. So okay. even you Bill Belichick people, you're like, well, the time has come. He's on his way down, but he's still the greatest quarterback of all time. She's like, no, keep him. We should have kept him another year. Yeah. Wind it back one more time. I don't know about that one.
Yep. Bobby Elaine was another one in there too. So there's a few people that we want to say, thanks for. So keep the comments coming and keep the calls coming. Fun time.
All right. For my partner, Chris Santos, I'm Paul Santos. Thank you very much for watching. Patrick Jordan gets the final word. He says, Tom Brady forever.
There you go.
For Santos on Sports. Hey, have a great night. We'll talk to you again soon.